Over time, I have really noticed that if there is one topic that will get people fired up for a debate, it's over the stakes of a story. Does your favorite series deliver on the results of conflict, or is it in the Disney kingdom with the Mickey Mouse label? There have been plenty of series regarding shonen lately that have had this conversation going around, and I thought to myself, why not partake and maybe just fan the flames just a little bit? This conversation primarily began due to the recent Black Clover chapter in which some people felt that Asta not doming Sister Lily meant that the final arc is lacking stakes. Here is my thing first and foremost. Stakes are not limited to character deaths. I know, quite shocking, but you would be surprised how many people needed to hear that. Killing a character off is a pretty huge decision to make within a story because of the many ricocheting effects it can have. The beginning of One Piece is a perfect example, given Roger's death kicked off quite literally the entire journey in a new pirate era at that. Stakes are something that tends to try to fit the nature of the story and elevate the engagement for the audience, and in some cases surpass expectations. With some series you can't get enough of them, while others it's a bit lackluster and you get that feeling of the main cast will always be prevailing no matter what. When looking at Black Clover's case, each arc has had their stakes in a somewhat balanced manner when taking all things into consideration. With the Elf arc, for example, I didn't expect any of the mages possessed to die because that would have been an extremely unnecessary slaughterfest. As for Julius's case, at the time I wasn't a fan of his revival, but looking at things now, I kinda have to let Tabata cook. The main time I have honestly felt like the stakes of death were really present was within the second half of the Spade War. It came down to Yami or William, and although I'm not necessarily saying I needed one of these characters to die, I would have not minded seeing the possibility at the time. At the root of the problem though, people want bodies to drop, and that isn't how things are always going to work. Any threat to the mere existence of the Clover Kingdom is probably one of the highest stakes possible, and that at least has been consistent within Black Clover. I feel like wanting characters to die just because you feel like it's an appropriate time for them to die in a given situation is a bit of a jump in judgment. It's hard to tell people to simply wait for more developments given we only get one chapter at a time, but when it's truly time for a character to go, the author will pull that trigger. I think it's more justifiable to be frustrated with an author for backtracking on a character death, especially if the execution is out of this world, than to be upset with a character that didn't die when you wanted them to. My Hero Academia recently caught fire with this due to everyone's favorite explosive hero. Bakugo's presumed death at the time was done so well, I practically hoped that he stayed down, but the more I thought about it, I asked myself if he was really gonna stay down. Regardless of when he gets up, a lot of people are upset with this idea, and while I'm not getting into that today because screw that, it definitely is one of the moments to feel frustrated with deadly stakes. On the bright side, at least it's not nearly as offensive as Fairy Tail's execution with Makarov. Yes, I'm still salty about that to this day. Now what I'm trying to say here is that yes, these series have events on which death can pursue our characters and sometimes win, but at the end of the day, each author prioritizes different narrative stakes, and killing off a character is not something that should be the deal breaker to determine whether a series has stakes or not. World Trigger is a prime example of having stakes while not killing off characters one by one. We all know that agents can die given the context of the old Great War that consumed the old Borders' lives, and even what happened with Mikumo at the end of the After Crater invasion. But the Rank Wars has been the biggest stake in this series given the wins needed to make it to the away mission. Even now, as the exam arc goes on, there are stakes as to whether or not certain teams can rank high, and at the end we still have to await the final results for who will make it onto the away mission. One Piece's stakes encapsulate the very world building of the story. Every major event that happens in one area ricochets amongst the seas, and all sorts of plans take place amongst the new generation and the world government. What I'm getting at is that outside of the cast, world building stakes and narrative stakes are just as, and if not more important than toggling on the stakes that involve the death of a character. Series that pride themselves on making sure that characters can and will die will definitely make themselves known. Jujutsu Kaisen and Twin Star Exorcist are a prime example because the amount of bodies that have dropped over the course of their stories is pretty high. Yet even so, when looking at JJK, Jujutsu Society is thrown in disarray, which has created some new stakes for clan members, and then Japan itself, given Kenjaku's plan and the mere absence of Gojo, has added a new level of intensity for all of our characters. Whether it be a strategical battle with all sorts of politics, a battle of ideals and concepts with talent being pushed to their limits, or simply making it to the finish line to reach the next stage, these types of stakes are very important as well. In Black Clover's case, the entire kingdom is about to have their judgment day. The future of the kingdom is at stake, everyone's lives are technically at stake too, and the whole world will be given Lucius's endgame goal. Heck, Asta not even being present where the main stage will be at is a stake in itself. We all saw what happened when Deku wasn't at the main event, and I expect a repeat to a certain extent until he arrives back home. This video isn't going to be some deep analysis about stakes because for once I wanted to just chime in towards this conversation. As we get these new series and Jump especially, I think a reevaluation on what keeps the story tense and engaging will need to happen at some point because people are very prone to locking on the concept of killing a character off. So before you write off a series for having no stakes, make sure to ask yourself what is affected by a situation and the developments in between, because you might just realize that there's a lot more at stake than just death itself. That's pretty much it for me though. As always, thank you for watching, and make sure to leave all your comments about the stakes of a series in the comments section down below. Stay warm out there and I will catch you guys in the next one.